So this next section, we're going to dive into data in the workspace. One second. All right, so the objectives for this session are to go over what's in the workspace dashboard, how to bring your own data into your workspace, how to upload your genomic data to workspace buckets, set up your phenotypic data and just general links to your data in your data tables, and generally how to organize your data. All right, so you may now see with your workspace open that you can see here the different components of your dashboard. So this includes a high-level description. In the case of the slide that we're showing, it's we have a link to the bioarchive preprint that you might want to share in your dashboard if you're trying to reproduce, have others reproduce an analysis in your workspace. You can see a link to the Google bucket that is associated with the workspace there. And if you click on that link, it'll take you to the Google console to see what's inside. You can also see who the owners are of this workspace and general information about when it was created and last updated. You can see tags. The tags help for searching in the search bar. And you don't see this in this example, but if there was an authorization domain, you would see exactly which group is in the authorization domain. So again, this is really a great area to document what your analysis is about so that people understand what's happening in your workspace and what workflows are there and all that good stuff. So let's move on to the data tab. So the data tab here, you can see the different files referenced that can be anywhere in the cloud. And in this example, the sample data table contains simulated phenotypic data for 2,504 individuals from the 1,000 Genomes Project. Terra allows you to scroll left and right through this table to see what simulated phenotypes are present. And we'll talk about that more in a few minutes. Again, we went over the notebooks tab. Here's just a screenshot of that. And you can click, clicking on the notebook provides a read-only preview, which allows you to scroll through the commands and any documentation present without having to actually start notebook runtime and accrue costs. The notebook runtime you'll see in the screenshot is at the top right. So we'll go over in the hands-on portion more about using notebooks at that time. And the Workflows tab again organizes your bulk analysis. You can see the examples here, Genesis GWAS and this other file conversion workflow from DocStore. Okay, and again, the job history, here's a screenshot of that. This is where you can monitor your submissions, and hopefully you'll see the status of your submissions go from queued to submitted to succeeded. And if your workflow fails, there will be more information when you click view that tells you exactly why it failed. And you'll see the error messages and have links to the log files. All right, accessing data in the cloud. So let's talk more about Gen 3. So DIRS URIs, or the Data Repository Services Uniform Resource Identifiers, that is a mouthful. That is a specific URI that's meant to be cloud agnostic. And so, yes, there is the ability to reference these DIRS URIs in a configuration. There's an example there in the slide. And you can use that as a workflow input, or you can link it in your data table. And there's a link here that talks more about DIRS URIs if it's kind of your first time hearing about it, so you can read more there. This is just an example of how you can copy Gen 3 data using the actual Jupyter notebooks. So there's a Terra notebook utils library that you can copy to your workspace bucket. And here's just some commands of how to do that. And there's a nice link there to tell you more. And you can copy Gen 3 data using the command line. Here's more just commands that you can try at your leisure. Okay, so here's a little caveat for accessing Gen 3 data when you're doing an interactive analysis. So each user who wants to be able to use Anvil data must run a workflow to be able to access this data from Gen 3. This is a limitation that we're working on right now if we're fixing it. And here are just some instructions of exactly what you need to do to access that data. So I encourage you to walk through that if you want to access Gen 3 data. Okay, so in addition to data from Gen 3, you have many data sets you may want to expand the data for your analysis with. So let's talk about how to bring your own data from your local machine or another platform to your workspace. If you need to store data in Terra, you'll do so in your dedicated workspace bucket, and you need to follow these steps in order to do it. So note that these two steps apply no matter where data is coming from, Gen 3, your local machine, or other servers. So you can set up an authorization domain to protect your controlled access data. So basically what you do is you create a group, and that group can be all the people that need, maybe in your lab or whatever, that need to access that data. And when you create that workspace, when it asks you what authorization domain do you want one, you can select that group. And we've cloned a workspace in one of our previous sessions. So yeah, that's something I don't believe we set up in this example today. So just know that that's there for you. Next, you need to put the genomic data files in your workspace bucket. And the last step is to add any phenotypic data or links to the genomic data to your workspace table. So here is just how you can do that. You can go to the dashboard, you can click on that link to the Google bucket, and you can actually drag small files into the Google console if you'd like to do it that way and upload them. You can also use GSUtil, which is a great utility for moving large amounts of data. It's pre-installed in Terra for interactive analysis, so you don't have to install it. But if you're trying to, use it locally, you would have to download the SDK, and you can run through some prompts that are actually provided. I believe these are links to those instructions on how to do that. But yeah, you can move data using GSUtil from your local machine or anywhere in the cloud over to the Workspace's Google bucket. So yeah, I'll just reiterate that the data has to live in the cloud for you to be able to use it in the cloud. So let's talk about organizing your data. Again, you can think of this as like a built-in spreadsheet to organize everything that you have in there. You can have as many rows and columns as you need, but there's a little note here that if you have more than 50,000 subjects of Gen 3 data, there will be some challenges in the UI. But if you actually hover on those links or click on the link, there will be a little box that comes up, and it actually tells you how big is the file, where does the file live, and it gives you a nice GSUtil command, so you can actually copy that file to another place if you want to. So here's the example of kind of the phenotypic data, which is in the subject table. All right, and here's more screenshots of sort of what that looks like. We have these different tables. We have program, project, sample, and subject, and you can see here for sample, we actually have links to our CRAM and CRAM indexes there in that table to organize the sample data, and then we have different data in the other table. So there's some particular formatting that you need to do if you want to upload the data to the data table, and so we just list that here. Basically, for the sample table, I'll just walk through that example. You need to have a tabs limited or TSV formatted document in order to upload it, and you need to specify in the first column, or you would specify entity : sample _ ID, and that will tell Terra, okay, this is all related to the sample table. So I'm gonna put whatever's here there. And another trick is you can actually go into the data table and download the TSV if you want, and then you already have the formatting set up for you, and then you can just make edits that way. So there was a previous model that we had set up in back in the day when we had FireCloud before Terra, and the model is participants. Participants are related to samples, and samples can be set up with pairs, and then you can make sets of participants, sets of samples, and sets of pairs, and that relationship still exists in Terra if you want to connect everything. But there's also a flexible model where you can create whatever data table you want and specify whatever name you want. So there's a mention of FIS here. We'll talk more about that in a moment. So here's just a slide of how to modify your table. You can delete rows, and there's the option for downloading the TFC that I mentioned earlier. You can also use the little pencil to edit your rows. Okay, so this is more information on how to do that, generating a TSV file, and using the FireCloud service selector. So previously to Terra, there was FireCloud. That was the name of the platform, and a wonderful team created this Python library that they call FIS. And there's a link there on how to manipulate data using this library. Okay, so in summary, we talked about the documentation that you should set up in your dashboard, how to bring your own data into Terra, how to upload it to Workspace buckets, how to edit it in the data tables. And next I'll move over and we'll go through the hands-on and show you how to import a workflow from DocStore and how to run the workflow. So are there any questions about this presentation for organizing data? There was something I saw, there was a question I saw in the chat about references that are available. And I believe this slide, you can see reference data. We provide links to publicly accessible reference data. If you in your workspace click on the plus sign, you'll see options for HG19, HG38, and that way you don't have to like add it yourself. You can just use the publicly available resources. Okay, cool. So I'll move on to the next presentation. All right. All right, finding workflows in DocStore. So during this presentation, you'll understand what is a workflow, how to find the workflows in DocStore, how to export them from DocStore into a Terra workspace, how to set up and configure that workflow to run on data, and how to optimize the workflows so that you spend less money on the cloud. So bulk analysis workflows, we've talked about this, that's that middle processing step. And there are definitely lots of workflows that people have already written that are available out there. So it's always good to check out what's there before you start writing your own. And here there's 3 ways that you can see, you can find workflows. We have lots of them available in our curated showcase workspaces. They're actually hosted in either DocStore or the method Broad Methods repository. And so you'll see links here. All right, now let's move on to actually doing this together for the hands-on portion. So everybody, if you can, please pull up your workspace and go to the workflows section. Okay. If I'm going too quickly, please somebody say something. All right, so I'm gonna go to the workflow section. Okay. So we'll quick talk about DocStore since that's where we're going. There are hundreds of WDLs available in DocStore. DocStore is GA4 GH compliant, which is a board that kind of helps direct technical standards. And it's an open source platform for sharing Docker-based tools. So this is where our team actually posts the most up-to-date GATK workflows. So to get to DocStore, you're going to go directly from your workspace. First click find a workflow, and then you'll see some options. All right. So then we're going to click on Doc Store. Awesome. So this is what it looks like. Once you're in Doc Store, you can actually do searching and browsing of workflows. And you can search by organization at the top left of the page. So for example, we can search for Broad Institute and find workflows that have been developed and curated. So let's go ahead and click on that organization button. And what we're going to do today is we're going to actually search for TopMed. So I already typed in TopMed, so it'll come right up. So we'll go ahead and look at the TopMed organization. Okay, so now we're going to scroll down and find the TopMed alignment workflow. A little background on this workflow. It's an aligner that TopMed uses to process their data. The reason that it's nice is because you can bring your own data that you maybe want to combine with TopMed data for a bigger, stronger study. And you'll need to make sure that the data has been processed in the same way. And this workflow will do that for you. All right, so we're going to select the TopMed alignment workflow. And then from here, you can see there's UML aligner whittle. We're going to select that. There's another option for CWL if anybody uses CWL out there. Whittle is what we can use in Terra right now. So that's the one we're going to select. Okay, so I'm going to select that. Okay, so there's a lot of information here. Something I wanted to point out is under the file section. So this is where you can actually see the whittle itself. And you can actually click on test parameter files because every whittle needs to have a JSON that defines what you're running on. And so here's a nice example file that you can actually use. We're not going to use it today, so you don't need to download it or anything, but I wanted to just point that out. If there's multiple JSONs available, you're going to see additional versions in the drop-down menu. So yeah, so that's just something to be aware of. So we're going to go ahead. Oh, is there a question? No. All right, so now what we'll do is we're going to go export it directly to Terra. And we're going to click on that Terra button at the right and follow the directions. You're going to select basically the Anvil open access workspace that you cloned in the previous session as where you're going to export that workflow. I'll just point out, you'll see that there's both Terra and Anvil here. They're both, Anvil is basically the same thing. Terra and Anvil are the same thing. They're just separate URLs. Anvil is branded with Anvil branding, and you'll be able to access the same workspaces in either location. Today, we're just going to click the Terra option. So I'm going to click Terra. All right, it'll take a minute to load. Okay. So here it says I'm importing from DocStore. This is a generic warning message that you can kind of not worry about. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and select the workspace. Mine is Anvil, open access, demo. And I'm going to click import. Awesome. So now you can see I'm in my workspace and it's taken me to the workflows page. I'll pause just a moment so people can catch up if you're not on this step yet. All right. So I'll just note here that you'll see now this card is displays the whittle. And in our next session, we're going to actually configure it together. So in summary for this section, you just learned how to access workflows in DocStore. You just imported the TopMed aligner workflow to your workspace. And next, we're going to talk about best practices for setting up the workflows, and we'll actually configure this one to run. Okay, any questions?
Hi, I actually have one question, Rocio Dominguez. If I wanted to have my own analysis, then I would have to like create something in Docstore to be able to import it, like create a WDL or something like that, or? Oh,
Yep.
okay. Okay. And can you modify the existing ones? Like you want it a little bit different for whatever reason?
Yeah, so you could download this and use, actually, I use Sublime Text. There's a WDL extension that you can have there to like help highlight the syntax for you. And yeah, you can download, normally that's what I do, so I'm not starting from scratch. I'll download a WDL that kind of looks similar to what I'm trying to do and then edit it.
Okay, no, thank you.
Yep.
I'm gonna jump in. Two other options also. If you code in Python or R, and so we have another analysis, the interactive analysis, which allows you to code and in either Python or R in a Jupyter notebook. And coming soon, we have a group that we're working with in Australia who is developing a kind of a library that will allow you to write a Python code in a notebook and it will convert it to WDL format. So that's coming down the line. It's not there yet. And I know that also that the Terra team is working on an integrated WDL editor, but I don't know when that's coming, but it'll be down the road some. Just wanted to offer those up.
Okay, thank you.